The overlooked world, the massive data centers of the Galactic Trade Federation, hummed with constant activity. Thousands of worlds, millions of species, and countless resources flowed through the bureaucratic networks that controlled half the galaxy. In a small office on level 847 of the Central Administrative Tower, Senior Classification Officer Vextai reviewed planetary assessments with the bored efficiency of someone who had done the same job for 3 centuries. His 4 arms moved across multiple screens simultaneously, updating files and processing reports from exploration teams scattered across distant star systems. Most worlds fell into predictable categories: gas giants with valuable atmospheric compounds, rocky planets rich in rare metals, garden worlds suitable for colonization. The galaxy was vast, but patterns emerged after you had seen enough systems. Vextai paused at an entry that made him frown. Sol 3, also known as Earth, had been under observation for nearly 2,000 local years. The file showed a standard Class M world with abundant water, reasonable climate, and a developing species that called themselves humans. Nothing remarkable about that. Thousands of species reached industrial development every century. What puzzled him was the resource classification. The automated surveys consistently rated Earth as having minimal valuable resources. No rare elements, no unique energy sources, no strategic importance. The humans themselves were noted as technologically backwards, politically fractured, and showing little promise for rapid advancement. Another dead-end species, Vextai muttered, updating the file with a routine assessment. The humans would probably destroy themselves within a few hundred years, like so many others before them. Their radio transmissions showed constant warfare, environmental destruction, and social instability. Classic signs of a species that couldn't handle the transition to galactic civilization. He marked Earth's status as monitor only, low priority, and moved on to more interesting worlds. A system in the outer rim had discovered deposits of quantum crystals. Another world showed signs of developing dimensional fold technology. These were the planets that mattered to the Federation's expansion plans. Meanwhile, 8,000 light away on the 3rd planet from an unremarkable yellow star, Dr. Maya Patel stood in her underground laboratory and stared at readings that would have revolutionized galactic science if anyone had been paying attention. The facility stretched for miles beneath the Australian desert, hidden from orbital scans by layers of specialized shielding that the aliens monitoring Earth had dismissed as primitive attempts at nuclear hardening. Maya ran her hand through her grey hair and double-checked the quantum resonance patterns displayed on her screens. After 30 years of research into consciousness transfer and neural networking, she had finally achieved something that every psychology textbook said was impossible. She had successfully linked to human minds across a distance of 3,000 kilometers, creating a stable connection that allowed complete sharing of thoughts, memories, and sensory input. "Run the Beijing connection test again," she told her assistant, Dr. James Wong, whose own research into quantum entanglement had provided the theoretical foundation for Maya's breakthrough. James nodded and activated the communication array. Across the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Li Chen felt the familiar tingling sensation as her consciousness synchronized with the laboratory network. For 30 seconds, 3 brilliant minds functioned as one, sharing insights and calculations at the speed of thought. The connection ended, leaving all 3 researchers amazed at what they had accomplished. Maya smiled as she reviewed the data. The neural link had been perfect, with no degradation over distance and no harmful side effects. More importantly, The quantum entanglement field had remained stable throughout the entire test. "How many volunteers do we have now?" Maya asked. James consulted his tablet. 2,400,000 confirmed participants across all 6 continents. All of them have completed the neural mapping process and received the quantum implants. The network infrastructure is complete in 47 major cities. Maya nodded. The underground project had taken decades to organize. Working in secret, teams of researchers had developed the technology while carefully avoiding detection by the various governments and intelligence agencies that might want to control their work. They had recruited volunteers from every walk of life, every nation, every culture on Earth. Scientists, artists, teachers, farmers, engineers, doctors, people who believed that humanity needed to evolve beyond the limitations of individual consciousness. "What about the cover story?" Maya asked. "Still working perfectly," James replied. "The fusion reactors we built provide enough energy output to mask the quantum field generators. Any orbital surveillance will see exactly what they expect to see. Humans playing with primitive atomic energy, just like 100 other species, at our development level." Maya walked to the viewing window that looked out over the main laboratory floor. Hundreds of technicians worked at monitoring stations, each one connected to the growing network through quantum implants that looked like simple medical devices. The technology was far more advanced than anything the galactic community suspected. Humans could develop, but it was also completely invisible to conventional detection methods. The project had begun with a simple question. Why did every intelligent species in the galaxy seem to follow the same development pattern? Why did they all create hierarchical civilizations based on competition and resource control? Why did advancement always require conquering other species or exploiting weaker worlds? Maya's research into collective consciousness suggested a different path. Instead of competing with each other, what if an entire species could cooperate at the level of thought itself? What if billions of minds could work together on problems that individual intelligence could never solve? The implications were staggering. A collective consciousness could process information at incredible speeds, make decisions without the delays of political systems, and coordinate complex actions across an entire planet. More importantly, it could potentially extend beyond a single world to connect with other species across interstellar distances. Dr. Patel, one of the technicians, called out, "We're getting some interesting readings from the Deep Space Monitoring Array." Maya hurried to the technician's station. Earth had a network of hidden sensors scattered throughout the solar system, far more sophisticated than the primitive satellites the aliens thought they were tracking. These sensors had been monitoring galactic civilization for years, learning about alien technology and political structures. "What are you seeing?" Maya asked. The technician pointed to a display showing hyperspace distortions near the edge of the solar system. 3 ships, probably Galactic Federation scouts. They've been maintaining position for 6 months, just watching us with passive sensors. Maya studied the readings. The alien ships were using technology that human science barely understood, but the quantum consciousness network had been analyzing their methods for years. Every transmission the aliens sent was intercepted and decoded. Every sensor sweep was catalogued and studied. "They still think we're primitive," Maya said with satisfaction. "They see our cities, our technology, our radio broadcasts, and they assume we're just another developing species that might be worth monitoring in a few centuries." "Should we accelerate the timeline?" James asked, joining them at the monitoring station. Maya considered the question carefully. The original plan called for another year of preparation before activating the global consciousness network. But if the aliens were getting more interested in Earth, they might not have that much time. No, she decided. We stick to the schedule. The network isn't ready for full activation yet. We need every volunteer connected and all the quantum field generators online before we reveal what we can do. She looked around the laboratory at the dedicated researchers who had spent their lives working toward this moment. They were about to change not just human civilization, but the entire balance of power in the galaxy. The aliens thought Earth was just another backward world with nothing to offer. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. Send a message to all network nodes, Maya ordered. Final preparations begin tomorrow. In 60 days, humanity awakens. Back in his office on the Federation Administrative Tower, Vexti finished his daily reports and prepared to leave for the evening. His work was routine but important. The galaxy was a big place, and someone had to keep track of all the insignificant worlds that might someday become significant. He glanced one more time at the Earth file, noting the continued low priority status. The humans were still transmitting the same mixture of entertainment broadcasts, political arguments, and scientific discussions that had characterized their communications for decades. Nothing indicated any major technological breakthroughs or social developments worth investigating. Vexti closed the file and shut down his workstation. Tomorrow would bring more reports, more worlds to classify, more species to evaluate. The humans would probably still be fighting among themselves and struggling with primitive space travel. Some species took longer than others to mature enough for galactic citizenship. The humans might get there eventually, assuming they didn't destroy themselves first. As he left his office, Vexti had no idea that he had just made the biggest intelligence failure in galactic history. Earth wasn't falling behind the expected development curve. It was racing ahead on a completely different track, preparing to demonstrate capabilities that would reshape everything the galaxy thought it knew about consciousness, technology, and the nature of intelligence itself. The quiet planet was about to speak, and when it did, the entire galaxy would be forced to listen. The awakening signal senior, communications monitor Zethkar, was enjoying what passed for a quiet shift aboard the Federation monitoring station, eternal vigil, when every alarm system in the facility activated simultaneously. The massive orbital platform, positioned at the edge of Federation space to monitor dozens of developing systems, had never experienced a complete sensor overload before. Zethkar's tentacles flew across his control interfaces as he tried to identify the source of the disturbance. Every screen showed the same impossible reading. The Sol system, home to the primitive humans, had simply vanished from the galactic communication network, not destroyed, not damaged, but completely silent across every frequency and detection. Method the Federation possessed. Status report, barked Commander Teishdell as she entered the communication center. Her species had evolved from apex predators, and even after millennia of civilization, her presence commanded immediate attention from subordinates. "Ma'am, we've lost all contact with Sol 3," Zethkar reported, his voice showing the confusion every operator in the room was feeling. Radio transmissions, quantum signatures, even basic electromagnetic radiation. The entire system has gone dark. Commander Teishdell studied the displays with growing concern. In 300 years of monitoring developing civilizations, she had never seen anything like this. Species occasionally destroyed themselves in nuclear wars or ecological collapse, but that created distinctive energy signatures. Species sometimes achieved breakthroughs that changed their communication methods, but that was a gradual process visible over decades. Time frame, she demanded. The cutoff was instantaneous, occurring at 1427 Galactic Standard Time. One moment we were receiving normal human transmissions across multiple channels, entertainment broadcasts, government communications, scientific data exchanges. The next moment, complete silence. The commander activated her personal communication array and sent priority alerts throughout the Federation communication network. Within hours, the mysterious silence from Earth had reached the highest levels of galactic government. Emergency committees formed, scientific teams were consulted, and intelligence agencies began preparing worst-case scenarios. The general consensus was that the humans had finally destroyed themselves. Their violent history and unstable political systems made self-destruction seem like the most logical explanation. A few scientists suggested that the species might have achieved some kind of technological breakthrough that changed their communication methods, but that possibility was dismissed as unlikely given their primitive development level. For 3 weeks, the galaxy ignored Earth and moved on with more important business. Trade routes continued operating, political negotiations proceeded as scheduled, and military patrols maintained their regular assignments. The silence from one insignificant world barely registered in the vast scope of galactic civilization. Then the merchant ship, Golden Prophet, vanished. Captain Velrun had been hauling processed minerals from the outer colonies to the core worlds for 2 decades. His route took him within 20 light-years of the Sol system, close enough to use the star's gravity well for navigation purposes, but far enough away to avoid any potential hazards from the dead. Human civilization. The Golden Prophet simply disappeared between 2 routine hyperspace jumps. No distress signal, no wreckage, no evidence of what had happened. Search and rescue teams found nothing but empty space, where the ship should have emerged from hyperspace, when a second merchant vessel disappeared. Along the same route 3 days later, the Federation began to pay attention, when a patrol ship investigating the disappearances also vanished without a trace. They realized they had a serious problem. Admiral Keshtar of the Federation Navy stood in the main briefing room of the dreadnought Absolute Authority and studied tactical displays that made no sense. 3 ships gone, no evidence of attack, no indication of mechanical failure. The disappearances formed a rough pattern around the Sol system, as if something was reaching out from Earth to grab passing vessels. Could the humans have survived their apparent extinction and developed hostile technology? Asked Intelligence Director Morthek. Admiral Keshtar considered the possibility. Unlikely. Our last intelligence reports showed them barely capable of chemical rocket propulsion. Even if they achieved some kind of breakthrough, they lack the industrial base to threaten interstellar shipping. Then what explains the disappearances? Morthek pressed. The Admiral didn't have an answer. In 40 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this situation. Enemy attacks left evidence. Natural phenomena followed predictable patterns. Technology failures could be analyzed and understood. But ships simply vanishing near a supposedly dead world defied all logical explanation. Prepare a reconnaissance force, he ordered. 3 heavy cruisers with full sensor arrays and enough firepower to handle any potential threat. I want to know what happened to Earth and whether it poses a danger to Federation space. The reconnaissance mission launched within days. The 3 cruisers approached the Sol system with every sensor active and all weapons ready. They expected to find a dead world, probably scarred by nuclear warfare or environmental collapse. What they discovered instead changed everything. The galaxy thought it knew about human civilization. Earth was very much alive, but it had become something beyond anything in Federation experience. The planet glowed with organized energy patterns that shouldn't have been possible with any known technology. Structures that looked like cities covered the entire surface, but they pulsed and flowed like living organisms. The atmosphere itself seemed to shimmer with purposeful activity. Captain Deshmar of the lead cruiser Vigilant Storm stared at his displays in amazement. Are we certain this is the same planet? Could the humans have somehow transformed their entire world? His science officer, Dr. Yithron, was running every scan he could think of. Sir, I'm reading energy signatures that don't match any known technology in Federation databases. The entire planet appears to be generating a quantum field that extends throughout the solar system. Could that field explain the missing ships? Captain Deshmar asked. Before Dr. Yithron could answer, every instrument on all 3 ships registered something impossible. A voice, clear and unmistakable, spoke directly into the minds of every crew member simultaneously, not through communication systems or translation devices, but as pure thought transmitted directly to their consciousness. Welcome to Earth, the voice said with warmth and infinite patience. We have been waiting for you. The crews of the 3 Federation ships stood frozen in shock as the implications hit them. The humans hadn't destroyed themselves. They had evolved into something that could communicate telepathically across interstellar distances. The quantum field surrounding Earth wasn't a weapon or defensive system. It was a consciousness network that encompassed an entire world. Captain Deshmar found his voice first. Who am I speaking with? Are you the government of Earth? The response came with gentle humor. There is no government as you understand the concept. We are humanity itself, all 4 billion minds connected in permanent communication. We speak as one because we have become one. Dr. Yithron's scientific training overcame his shock. How is this possible? Your species showed no indication of telepathic abilities in our previous observations. We developed the ability rather than inheriting it. The collective human consciousness replied. Your species assumed that evolution follows biological limitations, but consciousness can evolve much faster than biology when properly guided. Admiral Keshtar's voice came through the communication link from the Absolute Authority, monitoring the exchange from a safe distance. What happened to our missing ships? The answer carried notes of apology and explanation. They were not destroyed. When we activated our planetary consciousness network, we accidentally created spatial distortions in hyperspace. The ships were pulled into our reality temporarily. We have repaired any damage and placed them in safe orbits around Jupiter. Their crews experienced no harm, though they may have some interesting memories of their brief contact with our collective awareness. Captain Deshmar felt his understanding of the universe shifting. You're saying an entire planet achieved collective consciousness in the span of a few weeks? We have been preparing for decades, came the patient reply. What appeared to be primitive fusion research was actually the construction of quantum consciousness amplifiers. What you interpreted as political conflict was actually coordinated planning to ensure every human community could participate in the network. We allowed you to underestimate us because we needed time to complete our transformation. The Federation crews struggled to process what they were learning. A species had achieved something that galactic science considered theoretically impossible. They had connected billions of individual minds into a single, unified consciousness while maintaining their individual personalities and memories. More importantly, they had done it without any outside help or guidance. "What are your intentions toward the galactic community?" Admiral Keshtar asked from his distant position. The human collective consciousness was quiet for several moments, as if consulting with itself across vast distances. When it responded, the words carried undertones of sadness and determination. "We have been monitoring your civilization for many years. We have seen how your species treat each other, how the strong dominate the weak, how advancement requires conquest and exploitation. We have watched worlds strip mined for resources, entire populations enslaved for labor, brilliant cultures destroyed because they were inconvenient to more powerful neighbors." Captain Deshmar felt a chill of apprehension. "Are you declaring war on the Federation?" "No," came the immediate response. "We are offering something better. We are offering freedom." Before anyone could ask what that meant, the quantum field around Earth pulsed with new activity. Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds where oppressed populations lived under Federation rule, people suddenly found themselves connected to something vast and wonderful. Farmers working in slave conditions felt their minds expand beyond their individual limitations. Factory workers trapped in corporate exploitation suddenly understood that they were part of something greater than their circumstances. Entire populations of conquered worlds discovered that they were no longer alone. The human consciousness network was extending itself across interstellar space, reaching out to connect with every intelligent being willing to accept the link, not to control or dominate them, but to offer them the same unity and purpose that had transformed human civilization. Captain Deshmar watched his sensor readings with growing amazement as similar energy signatures began appearing on Federation worlds throughout the galaxy. The humans weren't just sharing their consciousness technology. They were creating a revolution that could spread faster than any military force could respond to it. "This changes everything," he whispered to his crew. The human collective consciousness heard him and responded with what might have been a smile translated into pure thought. "Yes, it does. The question now is whether your civilization will adapt to the new reality or try to fight against it." Far across the galaxy, alarms were sounding in Federation command centers as reports poured in about mysterious consciousness phenomena on dozens of worlds. The quiet planet that everyone had ignored was reaching out across the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same again.